In the heart of bustling Lagos, where the market streets danced with color, chaos, and the scent of roasted plantains mixed with dust and sweat, a young, ambitious woman named Amaka stormed through the crowd with the confidence of someone who believed she owned the world. She was tall, striking, and immaculately dressed in a sleek navy jumpsuit and glittering heels that clicked arrogantly against the cracked pavement. People parted for her as she moved like a hurricane through the marketplace. Her phone glued to her ear as she yelled at some junior staff who had fumbled the morning reports. Amaka worked at Majestic Holdings, one of the top real estate firms in West Africa, and after 3 years of hustling, manipulating, and outshining every competitor, she was on the verge of becoming the youngest regional manager in the company's history. Her boss, the mysterious billionaire Mr. Kenneth Okocha, had recently returned from abroad, and whispers circulated the office that he was scouting someone for an elite executive role. Amaka, ever competitive, was determined to be chosen, no matter the cost. As she marched through the market that morning, she didn't notice the frail old woman seated quietly by the banana stall, her wrapper dusty, her hands trembling as she held out a rusty tin cup. The beggar woman's eyes were kind but tired, her voice barely a whisper as she asked, "Please, my daughter, help me with a little something to eat." But Amaka, too lost in her world of power and pride, scowled at the interruption. "Ugh! Don't touch me, dirty woman!" she shrieked and, without warning, kicked the woman's bowl of coins aside, sending them scattering across the muddy path. The old woman stumbled backward, landing hard on her side, her head hitting the edge of a wooden stall. Some nearby traders gasped in horror, but none dared challenge Amaka, who adjusted her sunglasses and strutted away, muttering about how disgusting the poor were. She had no idea that every single move she made was being recorded by a fruit seller's teenage son on a beat-up smartphone. The video was short but crystal clear and explosive. That night, the video was uploaded to a local Facebook page, and within hours it went viral. Millions watched in outrage as the arrogant woman assaulted a helpless elder. Comments flooded in with curses, demands for justice, and even threats. But Amaka, too absorbed in her world, didn't realize the storm she had triggered. The next morning, however, she would get her first taste of the consequences. She arrived at the office expecting a boardroom meeting, only to find police officers waiting at reception. Confused, she was pulled aside by her HR manager and informed that she was being placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. Investigation? For what? She shouted. "I'm your top performer." But when she saw the video on her phone, her knees weakened. She tried to explain, to claim it was fake or that the woman had provoked her, but the evidence was undeniable. Her colleagues avoided her gaze. Some even shook their heads in disappointment. That day, she returned to her apartment in shame, haunted by the image of the woman's soft eyes, her words echoing in her head. Still, Amaka felt no guilt, only anger. She cursed the market, the video, and the old woman for ruining her chance at greatness. Meanwhile, in a quiet mansion across town, the billionaire Mr. Okocha sat silently in his private study, his eyes misty with disbelief as he watched the same video. Beside him, seated in an armchair, was the very woman from the footage, his mother. Her real name was Mama F., a wealthy philanthropist known to none but a select few, and once every month, she disguised herself in old clothes and went into the streets to feel the pulse of her people, to understand their suffering firsthand. That day had been one of those days. She had chosen the market for her routine, and never had she imagined such cruelty. "Is this the woman you said might lead your company one day?" she asked her son quietly. Mr. Okocha was silent for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "She was," he said. "But not anymore." His mother sighed deeply. People's true hearts are seen in how they treat those who can do nothing for them. That evening, as Amaka sat in her apartment drowning her rage in wine, she got a call from Mr. Okocha himself. Shocked, she quickly composed herself and answered, faking confidence. "Sir, I can explain." He cut her off with a cold tone. "Amaka, I need you at my house. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. Do not be late." Heart pounding, she stared at the phone after the call ended. This could be her final shot. Perhaps he was giving her a chance to explain herself. Maybe, just maybe, he'd forgive her. She didn't know that when she arrived the next morning, nothing would ever be the same again. Amaka arrived at the Okocha mansion at exactly 8:55 a.m. Her nerves a tangled mess beneath the crisp white suit she had carefully chosen to impress. The mansion stood like a silent guardian on the edge of Victoria Island, grand and intimidating with tall gates, manicured gardens, and guards in black suits who ushered her in with little emotion. As she walked up the long marble path leading to the front entrance, her heels clicked a little too loudly, betraying the tremble in her knees. Deep down she feared this might be her judgment day, but still she clung to hope. The heavy oak doors opened, and she was escorted by a butler into a quiet sitting room where Mr. Okocha waited with an unreadable expression. Sitting beside him, to Amaka's horror, was the same beggar woman she had assaulted. Except this time, the woman looked nothing like the ragged figure she remembered. Mama F, as she was formally introduced, wore an elegant cream lace iro and buba, with coral beads around her neck, her silver hair neatly wrapped in a gold gelly. Her posture was regal, her aura gentle but commanding. Amaka stood frozen, her mouth dry. "Good morning," Mr. Okocha said stiffly, gesturing to the seat opposite them. Amaka sat slowly, her hands trembling in her lap. "You know why you're here," he continued. "But what you don't know is who you assaulted." Amaka swallowed hard, her eyes flickering from her boss to the woman she had once kicked like trash. "She's my mother," Mr. Okocha said coldly. "And the heart of this company. Every major decision I've ever made, she's been my advisor. She doesn't sit in boardrooms, she sits in the hearts of people. The very people you trample under your feet." Amaka's lips quivered as she tried to speak, but tears welled in her eyes. "Sir, I didn't know, please. I was having a bad day, I wasn't thinking." "You were thinking," Mama F said softly, her voice like wind through dry leaves. "You were thinking you were better than someone who looked poor. You didn't stop to ask if I was hungry, sick, or simply in pain. You just kicked me aside like I was nothing." Her words cut deeper than any shouting could. Amaka broke down then, the tears spilling freely as she fell to her knees. "Please. I'm so sorry. I was stupid, arrogant. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I swear I've learned my lesson." The room was silent for a long while. Then Mama F stood slowly and walked to Amaka. She knelt down with great effort and gently touched her shoulder. "I forgive you," she whispered. "Not because you deserve it, but because bitterness is a heavy burden. And because you have the chance to change." Mr. Okocha stood and motioned for the butler. "Amaka, you are suspended indefinitely. Your position is terminated. However, my mother has asked me not to destroy your career. That's the only reason you're not being sued." Amaka nodded brokenly, ashamed and humiliated. But then he added, "She also insisted you be offered something else, a second chance, but not in the boardroom." Amaka looked up, confused. "You're going to spend the next 3 months volunteering in Mama F's foundation. Cleaning, feeding, serving the people you once thought beneath you." Her pride roared in resistance, but guilt and remorse crushed it. "I'll do it," she whispered. "Anything." And so began the most transformative period of Amaka's life. For 3 months, she lived in modest quarters on the foundation's grounds, wore simple clothes, and worked from dawn till dusk helping the poor. She cleaned toilets in orphanages, washed dishes in slum kitchens, and delivered food to patients in public hospitals. At first she struggled, her nails broke, her back ached, and she cried alone in the nights. The sun had barely crept over the skyline of Victoria Island when Amaka arrived at the grand iron gates of Mr. Okocha's mansion. Her heart thudded in her chest as the massive gates opened without a word. A silent guard waved her through, and the path ahead was lined with royal palm trees and attention she could not escape. She wore a modest black dress, her makeup subtle, her hair neatly pinned, a far cry from the arrogant diva of the marketplace. Inside, the marble-floored foyer seemed to echo her every footstep as she was led into the main lounge. And there, sitting side by side, were the two people she least expected to see together. Her billionaire boss and the beggar woman she had kicked, now dressed in regal iro and buba, her hair elegantly tied, her eyes calm but commanding. Amaka froze, her throat dry as sand. "You," she whispered, staring at the old woman. "You're—" "Yes," the woman interrupted softly. "The one you saw as beneath you. A worthless beggar." Amaka fell to her knees in stunned silence. Her whole world cracked open at the seams. Mr. Okocha stood slowly, his face expressionless. "You assaulted my mother, Amaka. You mocked and humiliated the woman who gave me life, who built this empire with me from scratch. Do you understand the gravity of what you did?" Tears spilled from Amaka's eyes, not out of fear for her job, that was already lost, but from the realization of the kind of person she had become. "I'm sorry," she whispered hoarsely. "I didn't know. I was proud, selfish, blind." Mama F. Rose walked to her and placed a hand on her shoulder, not in anger but with a deep sadness. "The pain wasn't in the kick, child. It was in knowing how empty your heart had become." Mr. Okocha sighed. "There's a part of me that wanted to ruin you, to blacklist you in every company. But my mother, she asked me to give you a choice instead." Amaka lifted her head, confused. "A choice? You will go to Adaba village, far from this city's noise and power. There's a small orphanage we support there, run by volunteers. You will live there, work there, sleep in the same worn bunks as the children, and feed the poor with your own hands. Not for a day, not a week, but for 1 year. No salary, no status. If you truly want redemption, that is the price." Amaka was silent for a long moment, her pride and ego still trying to fight, but now too weak to win. She nodded slowly, accepting the fate her heart somehow knew she needed. "I'll go," she said. "Thank you for not destroying me." Mr. Okocha said nothing more. A driver was called. That evening, Amaka left the city not as a fallen executive, but as a broken human being in search of her soul. The journey to Adaba was long and dusty. The children were rowdy and chaotic, the rooms cramped, the food basic, but their smiles, oh, their smiles, warmed something in her that had been frozen for years. She spent her days bathing sick children, scrubbing floors, chopping firewood, and reading stories by lantern light. She cried many nights, not out of misery, but from the weight of her past. With time, the children began to love her. Auntie Maka, they called her, and slowly, she began to feel human again. Months passed. Her skin darkened in the sun, her hands hardened with labor, but her heart softened in ways she had never imagined. On the final day of the year, a black SUV rolled into the village, and from it stepped Mr. Okocha and his mother. The reunion was emotional. The children danced around them, eager to show off their favorite, Auntie. Mama F embraced Amaka, tears in her eyes. "Now I see you," she said gently. "Not as the woman in heels and rage, but as the woman in dust and heart." Mr. Okocha nodded. "The position at Majestic is still closed, but I have a better one. I want you to lead our new foundation, to bring light to the forgotten." Amaka didn't respond with cheers or gratitude. She simply bowed her head and said, "This time I won't fail the people." Years later, Amaka would be known across the continent not for her fall, but for her rise from it, as the woman who once kicked a beggar, only to kneel before the world in service. And the story of her transformation would inspire thousands to look again before judging, to listen before shouting, and to love before lifting their hands in anger.